Welcome to Crypto After Dark, your crypto podcast brought to you by the Pillars. Join as we dive into candid, unscripted conversations with the visionaries, influencers, and creators shaping the crypto world. Whether you're a crypto aficionado or new to this crazy space, Crypto After Dark is your weekly dose of engaging stories and personal revelations, making the vast crypto space a little more relatable, one episode at a time. Today's guest, um, some of you might know him, but if you're hanging out in the space, probably everyone knows him. It's the person behind our call channel. It's the person behind Oscar's calls. It's Oscar Degle. Oscar himself is up on stage today. Welcome, Oscar.
Oh, thank you.
For people that don't know what a call channel is, just to give a quick update, is a call channel is where certain great opportunities are getting called out to the community. Of course, you have to be aware of the fact that this is like we are in crypto, right? Like nothing is 100% for sure. And also, even though Oscar has an incredible track record, also he doesn't have a crystal ball. But what he has is a wonderful network. He's wonderfully connected in the space, knows a lot of developers, knows a lot of spaces, other call groups, so many stuff that he always knows what's going on currently in the space. What are some launches maybe to look out for? Maybe something that you can throw a couple of hundreds in, and then if everything goes good, as we also had. I mean, what was the biggest X that we had? 85X so far. So there's big opportunities ahead of us, which is super exciting, especially now since the market is picking up. Bitcoin is going crazy. Everything else is going crazy. So this is for everyone that is listening right now. You're in the right place in the right time, and also that you can ask Oscar all your pressing questions about how he figures out these calls, or how he actually trades them, or what he's how he is looking for good calls and bad calls, all of that stuff, which also these guys, Matt Hatter and Oscar, are gonna discuss on stage now in a bit. And also, I want to say that we have a very, very nice giveaway. I'm not. Yeah, I will let it to Matt Hatter to announce the giveaway and what it's about at the end to keep it exciting, and so that all of you guys are staying in and listening. Of course, it's a very, very great giveaway. So make sure to be around and also to ask questions and be engaged and show Oscar some love. And that's enough for me. I'm gonna jump off the stage.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Oscar, welcome. As I said earlier,
Thank you.
thank you so much for being up so late. This is going to be a bittersweet conversation for me because, of course, we have a lot of calls that have done very well that we get to talk about. However, as you well know, I have probably missed most of them by not taking the opportunities when I should have. So while I'm very much looking forward to finding out how you get these wonderful calls and what processes you go through, there's also a little part of me that's going to be crumbling on the inside as I'm talking about my unrealized gains, unfortunately. However, we do have our first question, and it is probably going to be the most important question of the evening, and it comes straight from Joniverse, and that is, what is your favorite boy band?
My favorite boy band. What? That's a really.
That's a tough
What
one, huh?
was
Backstreet
the
Boys.
Backstreet Boys? Yeah, Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
yeah.
let's pass that question with Backstreet Boys. I was thinking their name.
There you go, Backstreet Boys, and let's move on quick.
Yeah.
You know, it's been really fascinating watching the calls come in over the last 45 days or so, because one of the things that is always on people's minds, especially when they hear about a call group, is that, is this a group that is just designed to be liquidity? Is it something that is actually going to help people? Are these genuine calls? Are they mostly rugs? How does it work? And there's a lot of moving parts, I think, for people before they decide to
Mhm.
invest their money. So I'm sure there's been many that have just been watching, and your success speaks for itself. We shared a spreadsheet that people can see in your call channel, which
Mm.
I'll pin in the community questions section, that shows how much people could have made. And I think it was something like over 6K if you had jumped into every call with just $100, which is huge. How are
The
you feeling?
first sheet, yeah.
Yes, the first sheet. How are you
The-
feeling about it at the moment? How do you feel about the calls, just doing it at the moment?
This is what I do everywhere. Actually, I just like research the call. Usually, evening time is my trading time, and I feel good about it because like these calls went well this month. So it is good overall. Overall, it's like I'm trading in front of my screen, sharing it with you guys, and I'm
Mhm.
happy if someone making money off them.
What got you into this space in the first place? I know for everybody it's a different answer, and there's always an interesting journey that sits behind people that do a lot of this kind of stuff. How did you find yourself in crypto?
The first bull run was I think like 2017. Like the people were like already playing with their phones, trading stuff, but it didn't make sense to me at first. I was just like looking from away. It looks complicated. But by 2019, one of my friends talked me into it. So I started playing around with it, start learning. I start to make some money, but also the learning something totally new, it kind of become attractive to me. So I start
Hmm.
to play around with it, trade a little bit. And by 2020, I start to like really trade and play around with it. And since then, I didn't stop, especially when I start to make money out of it. It become like the main income source for me.
Was it always mostly low cap tokens, early tokens, freshly launched tokens that you were dabbling with when you first started, or were you coming at it from a
No,
slightly
no, no,
different
no, no,
angle
no.
before you got into this?
That's something you learn along the way. Of course, this is like more like the kitchen of the stuff, right? First, you learn
Right.
the tokens, and you start to trade some big caps and learning. And the more you move into the space, you see that how things started in the network, how people launch tokens, and actually every token being launched and be successful, how small caps they usually start and stuff. And you more go deep into the rabbit hole, you end up there. And along the way, when I was earning money, losing money multiple times, I was keep learning and moving deeper and deeper. Where you end it is where the coin is being launched and where all this information shared in the space. That's where you're gonna end up where everything is started.
Right. You're doing this full time, right?
Yeah, at the moment, I quit my job last year, so I'm fully
Mhm.
trading crypto at the moment.
Right. That, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to hear that because one of the things that a lot of people that do some of these call groups, they will have multiple jobs or multiple things that they're doing in the back end, and then you start to question whether or not this is something that they're giving their full focus to. But what you are doing is you do this full time alongside another passion of yours, and that's something I want to get into just very briefly. You were talking about overtraining. One of the things that interests me about what it is that you do is it must take an awful lot of discipline. And I suspect that comes from what it is that you enjoy practicing outside of crypto. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
It is, yeah. You have to be like little bit like obsessive and like disciplined to do this constantly.
Right. Um, in terms of training, what is it that you practice? Because I know that I'm speaking to someone who, if we ever met, you'd probably be able to choke me out in a few seconds flat.
Oh, like I've been doing like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for like 15 years. I hold a black belt on that. I'm coaching
Wow.
and training at the same time. Yeah.
How do you find, because I'm fascinated by people who do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, mainly because I never did it, but it's something I really enjoy watching. And I always wish it had been something I jumped into. How do you find what you do doing BJJ translates to what you're doing here? Is it the discipline side? Is it something else that you bring, the patience maybe? What elements are you taking from being a black belt in such a wonderful discipline and kind of bringing it into this space?
Oh, that's an interesting question actually. not only crypto, that one thing Jiu-Jitsu teaches you is that how to perform under extreme stress. It teaches you to be comfortable under uncomfortable situations.
Mm.
Because you're constantly being squashed, smashed, someone trying to really get to you and try to get something. And under all those conditions, you have to stay calm, solve problems, act in a good way, like smart way. So it is the same thing. You cannot act with emotions and like being extremely reactive. All these things gonna end up you losing. Yeah, it
Right.
is similar to like I think it teach me the same thing because when I started the first time at the crypto, every loss was like, oh my God, and every win was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like along the way, the more I grow in the jujitsu, also I kind of reflected on this thing. So I start to take the emotions out of it, stick with the patterns in a disciplined way, like same as the training, and be comfortable whatever the situation brings in. Just stick with the patterns.
Right. Yeah, I imagine it plays a lot into the decision making, and I love that you have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. So if something is
Hmm.
going a bit crazy or wild or dropping fast or rising very high, actually, because it works in both directions, right? You have to be
Yes, yes,
able to
exactly. That's
still,
what I mean.
right, yeah, and you got to stick to your plan and ensure that whatever it is that you're doing, it's calculated. You understand what it is that you're doing, and like you say, you're not acting on emotion.
Exactly. Like one example would be you might have like 10 Ethereum in your wallet, let's say. Just a simple example of the discipline. And you might say that I'm gonna throw 1.5 and I'm gonna get rich, but
Hmm.
not like stick with your patterns, stick with your amounts, trade disciplined and like try to get the results in a long term pile up on each other instead of trying to get one lucky hit or something kind of thing. Same as jiu-jitsu, you cannot just get good in like 1 day, 2 day. You have to keep repeating what you're doing in a disciplined way, and it will be. It's one of the longest black belts you can earn. Like I don't think you can
Right.
get it under 10 years easily.
No, it takes time, it takes dedication, and also even in the
Exactly.
moment when you're rolling with people, it takes time to get to an armbar. You very rarely, if you're rolling with someone who's decent and on your level, are you going to get to an armbar or a omoplata or something quickly, right? It takes those calculated moves. It takes those kind of micro decisions that you're making in the moment in order to be able to manipulate someone to where you want them to be. When you're searching for tokens, do you, even though you are this discipline, do you still find that you sometimes find a token, look at a token, and think, actually, this is going to be fantastic. The opportunity is great here. And then what are you doing your side to reel yourself back in a tiny bit?
Oh, like when you choosing the token, actually, like many things are like out of your control. It might look extremely good, like great, and it might be the totally opposite of it, right?
Hmm.
So it is all about like collecting the information and get as much as checks you can. So this along the way, I was lucky to meet some good people, correct people, and they add me to these like private groups where there's people been doing this like much longer than me, and like they get really good at this, and they sharing information nonstop. So that was become one of the source, but of course it's not 100%. Also, then you have to add layers and layers onto it that like try to collect as much as checks you can. And
Right.
at the end you make the call. Still can things can go sideways? Of course it can.
Yes. I mean, we saw very recently that one of the calls that was made, um, if you had
Alpha
got
buy.
in at the right time, exactly, and if you had jumped out at the right time, you could have made some profit. So profit was still there to be had. Um,
Hmm.
and even though the contract liquidity was locked, um,
Hmm.
it still unfortunately had one of those moments of a very, very sharp downward red candle. So you never can tell. But would you say, in terms of collating this information, is it mainly these private groups with these people that are constantly sharing ideas about these tokens, and not just ideas as to whether they'll do well, but the technicalities you guys share as well, right? The particulars that you need in order to make an informed decision. Would you say that's the main basis of the information that you're able to get, and therefore you can lean on that when you're looking at other things? Or do you think other things that you are researching solo are the main basis, and you use those groups to kind of enforce what you already know.
It is like, let's say like this, like first that was my main source when I was learning. So I follow these people, but I kept asking how they find this stuff. And so I collect some information. And along the way, there was this technology come out, which they call it like ping bots. So they start to chase this like successful wallets and give you the information like wallets that has successfully been trading this like low caps and stuff. And it starts to ping you when they trade something. And sometimes multiple wallets trade something very early. So I start to like almost make like melt them into a pot. Like, and I look at it, it's like the information here comes and information here comes, and everything becomes a check to look at it. And also along the way, I created my own filters on the what you call it, like for example, DEX screener about
Mm-hmm.
the new added liquidity pools or new launch tokens. So I can keep an eye on my own filters sometimes. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And I will check my other sources. Oh, this looked interesting, but also this my whale wallet bot pinged it. So it is like another check. The first information might come from any of it, and I might cross-reference it with the others. That's how I found it.
Right. Tracking whale wallets is also going to be a really nice way of finding out information. I think that's something that is an underutilized tool that people have at their disposal. Just being able to see things on chain, and people
Mhm.
don't check enough data on chain in order to make their um, decisions. Day to
Mhm.
day, I don't think people are also aware of how much effort actually goes into what it is that you're doing. And then people now know that you quit your full-time job to
Mhm.
be able to do this and train jiu-jitsu. But how much time are you actually putting in to this? Because some people might say, well, sometimes there aren't calls for a few days and then there's a couple in quick succession. Is that just the market, or is it the fact that you're having to skim through all of these opportunities in order to find what you believe is the right one that is going to have minimal risk, or as minimal risk as there can be, for the people that you're sharing the information with?
Exactly. One of the reason is that the important thing is the screen time, right? You have to be in front of the screen as much as you can. And like there's like the times that things get like more heated, like when the US wakes up and the Europe wakes up, there's like different times. So for me, the evening time to night time, I spend 7 hours, 6 hours in front of the screen. I give it a quick look during the day as I'm free now, I'm working. I have this time to do this. So it needs a lot of screen time. But even you do this, things pass through you, the information passes. Market could be really low, there's no new launches, or there could be launches that not attractive enough. So it depends actually. But if I see opportunity, usually I share. Sometimes I see opportunity, but really I'm not sure. Those ones I don't share because like I feel it's really risky.
Hmm.
But again, when you share it, there's extra responsibility of it. But believe me, it is like the 90% of the things I share is the ones that I trade myself. Maybe like 5% I don't post it or something. But
Right.
I always believe in this, like the quality over quantity. Like there's call channels, they throw 5 pings every hour.
That's one thing I wanted to dial into, because obviously we had conversations before the call channel started, and one of the things I don't think people are aware of is just how firm you were on how you wanted to approach this, and that you wanted to ensure people were fully formed, that they understood that there was going to be risks to this. Not everything is going to be a win. Take your profit off the table. And as you said at the top of this, don't chase those moon bags. Leave a moon bag, but chase a 2, 3, 4x, 5x. What do you recommend to people, given that I know how firm you were on wanting to make sure that people were fully educated? What do you recommend people do in terms of their X returns? Is there a certain figure that you wait for before you take a certain amount off the table and then let the bags run? And are you always strict with that amount?
Okay. First of all, the first thing you said about the risks, let me share something that like actually John shared with me a couple of days ago. That was an interesting statistic. So people should understand what kind of wild waters we are sailing on. I think this was like February 23 or something. There was 48 liquidity pool locks on Ethereum network, right? 16 of them was tax funds. One of them rug and 24 them of honeycomb. So the scam ratio was 86%. This is on one day. Okay.
Right.
And on these 48 tokens, 7 safe tokens being launched, and only 6 of them succeeded. Succeeded means you might not make money, but they run for a while. They didn't rock, they didn't tax fund, anything like that. So on 48 tokens, there was only 6 tokens succeeded. The rest were scams. So if you're gonna trade low caps that didn't establish itself for a long time, that you know it is safe, it's been there for like 6 months, 7 months, there's a community being, treat it like it's gonna eventually go to zero at any time. So for me, that's one thing that Maestro bot makes it very easy for me to trade. I think the first question answer we made, also we mentioned that sometimes you look at the chart, you feel like, oh, this can go so much, like maybe not now and stuff. But that bot helps you keep the discipline. Usually, depending on the thing, I check the chart for minutes because sometimes there's like extreme jumps happen, right? And you can sell with one button. After I watched the chart, I said, you know what? Sell 60% of my bags at 3-4x. Depends on the token. I watch it and I set that up.
Right.
And it automatically does that for me. And there's a free bag left. Now I have the profit. I select the 4x, 60% of my tokens, and I have a free bag. I have time to watch it. If it rugged or something, it's not going to hurt. So I suggest people, like, whenever possible, sometimes it could be at 6x, sometimes it could be at 8x. It depends on the speed of the chart. But take your initials and some profit out and gamble on free money.
I like that. It's always better to gamble on free money. And you've mentioned Maestro bots. It's one of the questions that's coming in. That is, what tools are you using when you're looking up some of these tokens, and what you're using to then trade with them? Before we get there, some of the questions coming in are always going to be around why the Ethereum chain. It's expensive, which I know frustrates people, but I also know it then keeps people out of maybe the $50, $100 trades if they want to come in at a lower amount. Is there a reason why you like to focus on Ethereum over other chains?
I mean, Ethereum is scary. I was scared of Ethereum when I first started also. And I didn't jump into Ethereum until I make some money that I can play Ethereum from Binance Smart Chain first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, all the whales and all the good developers that gonna make legit projects, let's say not all, of course, like I'm saying the big majority of them, they all on Ethereum chain, right? And
Right.
another thing is like the volume, right? All the liquidity and everything is actually the volume on the chain. And most of the volume in Ethereum. And sometimes like that happened when we just started the call channel, like Solana gets like all the hype and like for 2 weeks, it's still some liquidity and the volume went there. But what happened 2 weeks after?
Mm-hmm.
Dead. Like there's nothing left there. Binance Smart Chain is a little bit different. There might be opportunities there for cheaper, but it's bear market, bull market, Ethereum chain always live. There's something going on. Like at the moment, Binance Smart Chain is not as much, but we are almost at the beginning of the bull. When the things are heated up, definitely there will be some Binance Smart Chain projects I keep an eye on. There might be some Solana projects, but time has to come. Ethereum is like it's almost like the night market, like 24 hours kind of.
Right.
But I understand the frustration with the gas. Yes, it's
Yeah, I
horrible.
mean, it's I get it too, and it's one of those things that I guess it's one of the questions again is going to be how are the market conditions going to affect your decision making, and you've already said there's always something for you going on the Ethereum chain, which is why you're always looking at that, and as the bull run really comes into full force, you'll start to look around at opportunities elsewhere. A really
Yes.
interesting question that was brought in is, for you, how much does a social media presence around a project matter do you think for a token that is fresh launching? Is there X amount of people that you'd like to see in a Telegram, for example? Does the Twitter need X amount of followers in order for you to consider it? Or do you not even think about that at the time of launch?
Of course, like now, let's talk about some project like, let's say, Balance AI, for example.
Mhm.
I'm just like throwing it in, and they're
Mhm.
building up, and you think about it, oh, this project is great. You check the socials, their white paper, this, that. Of course, these are all great things that if you're going to make an investment for long term, mid term, whatever. But with the low cap, which is called like shit coins and stuff, really doesn't matter. It can be done, it can be bought in 2 minutes. Sometimes the coins that they launch, I say, oh, there's a gamble here. We might be like, you look at it, their TG has like 78 people, and before you blink your eye, there's 350 people.
Right.
And their Twitter grows very fast because these small caps get the hype behind, everything grows very fast together with the price, right? But what I look at it mostly is like important with Twitter and the TG is like the scammy ones has like some like vibe that if you look at the TG, it's this like constant compliments, like Davis base, constant price talk. Like I check those kind of stuff. That how is the vibe there? How is the community going on? It's like they bring these people into continuously hype the project and they talk the same things. It is a very
Right.
big red flag for me. I pass it.
That's an interesting observation. I think everybody recognizes when those hype men and women are in those kind of spaces. Yet it's one of the things that I guess people sometimes lean into rather than away from because it's information bias. If they see something positive about something they want to get into, they'll stick with it rather than look at it from an impartial standpoint and say to themselves, well, is this, I've certainly done it, is this actually real or is this just people trying to hype something up? So being able to look at that impartially, I think, is key. You mentioned the Maestro bot. I know you use tools that allow you, as you said, to trade disciplined, that will take
Mm-hmm,
profit off the table,
mm-hmm.
that will allow you to invest exactly what you want to into these things. And these bots can often work very quickly. And you've already spoken on it a bit, but can you talk a bit more about exactly what it is that this Maestro bot has done for you in particular in your trading? And you know what kind of parameters you're able to put in that make it effective for anybody that wants to try this.
Oh, like I say master because that's what I use. It's not something I'm connected to or something, but there's many examples of it. There's Unibot, there's another one, but I find familiar with master. That's why I'm gonna call the bot maestro.
Sure.
So the thing it does is like, first of all, it gives you the peace of mind that you can give orders ahead of time. That, for example, there's a new launch. I always tell people to wait for the dip, right?
Mm.
We can easily do like other call channels say that, or this call made 300x, because all the call channels say that, like, I call this thing, it started from 2000 market cap, it went to 1 million, so it is like 500x, something like that, right? But actually that's not the reality. Like, people has to snipe these tokens and they bribe like crazy amount of Ethereum to get in the first block and stuff. So that's not realistic. That's why every call we said, wait for the dips, wait for your entry. The advantage Maestro bot gives is I watch the token and the first candle goes high, then I tell the bot that if it dips around this market cap, buy this much. So it can do that. That's like, I don't have to wait and click on time and wait for the pending. Another thing it do is like it do the transactions in a blink of an eye. So when you go through the decentralized exchanges, you click, send the comment to the blockchain and it's pending, you wait. And if your thing is failed, especially new launches when everything is very fast and your transaction is being failed, your gas fee is gone or you miss your entry, but many bad things can happen. This bot also avoid that for you.
Right.
Another thing, let's say you get your entry, right? And then you can set up the future of your trade. You say like, another 3x from here, 60% of my bag out, another 10x, take this one out, and you can set these things and you can go to sleep. You don't need to buy a token midnight and what's going to happen to my money and wait till 3 o'clock. I just put the orders, and I know my transactions will go through as I command to the bot.
Right. So really, by being able to input all of this data into what your wallet is doing, someone's already asking, when are you going to give a video lesson on how to use the Maestro bot? So
Full of it on YouTube. There's full of it on YouTube. They don't need me for that. Just right, Maestro bot.
maybe they like your voice. I think that's probably you have a calm voice, and that's what they're appreciating. It's clever to use technology to your advantage after all, in Web3. And I think the fact that you're using a bot that is able to set these parameters, and like you said, you can go to bed not thinking about it. And if it's 4x that you're after and you want to sell your entire bag, you can tell it to sell at 4x and you're done. If you don't want to drop below a certain percentage loss, you can tell it to sell before that point and then you're done. So it takes a lot of, like you said, the emotional thinking, trading, waiting, sitting up, 3 a.m. with your eyes peeled and trying to get that right exit.
Exactly.
All of that out of your hands.
Exactly.
One of the things I appreciate about you, Oscar, is that you're very open with your information too. It isn't just about telling people this is a call, and it isn't about hyping yourself up to say, look how wonderful it is. So I'm going to do that for you because really, I think the amount that people could have made, especially, I think, is it an 85x one of those tokens went, is
Korea.
Right. It's incredibly impressive to be able to call those tokens, and being so open to share this information with people is also something that a lot of core groups don't do. Is that something that, as we continue with this, and I'll be explaining a little bit about what will be happening to the core group soon, but as this continues, how important will it be to continue that educational process for the people that are coming in and really letting them know all of the details about what it is that you're doing?
Education, as long as the questions come in, like the educational process is like I told you, the screen time, calling the tokens, everything is fine. One thing I don't want to do is actually, after we make the call, if that's what you mean, after you make the call in education purpose, how we gonna trade that call wouldn't be something I would prefer.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, I'm sorry about everyone. Like I got many times I passed through my eyes questions like, should I enter now? Is it good time now? I prefer not to comment on those because after I make the call and it goes beyond 2-3x, that's a successful call. You can get your profit out or you can leave and move back, right? But if someone doesn't enter at that point and it is at a certain amount of price now, that's risky. So I'm not in a position to say, unless I am sure of something, which I did it with the TX. Unless I am sure, I would post it on the channel. Look, guys, I'm buying this, or I have some alpha news about this. This could happen, so I'm buying. That's okay. But other than that, if I have this info, I would share in educational purpose, or this is how we trade the stock. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of, or this is a good time now, or something like that. Like if I tell people to enter Alpha Byte now, what would happen? Right? It went very well. Everybody was crazy expectations about it. Like they were making promises, and what happened? Like zero.
No, you're right, and I appreciate that. What you're not trying to do is make people's decisions for them. You're just giving them the opportunity to make their own decisions and make some money.
Exactly.
And I also appreciate that you'll say if it goes 2 or 3x, that has been a success. But it does depend on where you get in, and that is a decision that only you can make. Nobody should be making that decision for you, right?
Yes, then the responsibility changes then, because my responsibility should be find the right information, share with you guys. The statistic we shared just then, right? With a place that 90% scam and rug rate, and whatever 10% left, only 3% successes. In a space like that, finding information 2-3x is like a good win. And like when everything is on screen, it doesn't look that valuable. But I put $100 on this table, and I turn it into 300. It looks great in the reality. right?
Mm.
It's like you would take it, but when it's on the screen, the greed comes in, and all these crypto stories in your head become a millionaire, and you don't take it. Take it. Take your profit. Take your money. Leave a free moon back. If you miss the call, don't worry about it. Like if it is not an established project like Balance AI or Solarium or something, they might even eventually go to zero. I'm not saying marry your bags, right? But
Right.
the risk is like very, very minimum. Crypto is like so easy that one team tomorrow come up and say that, oh, you know what, that USB we think about, that's not gonna work. So you wake up, the whole chart go to zero. They don't need to eventually run. So this kind of things, I tell people, don't FOMO. Don't, if you miss the token, wait for the next launch. This place is like full of opportunities, like every week, 2, 3 of. And if you want to
Yes,
jump, make your own decision, jump in.
those you're right, and those opportunities will come through. You mentioned Balance AI a few times, and I still have that chart up just to torture myself on what I didn't do. Same with Core. The the opportunities to get in were called. So I am one of those people that sometimes holds on too much to the opportunities that I missed rather than closing them down, getting rid of it, ignoring it, and then looking forward to the next one. In talking about responsibility, it's a discussion that we're having. It's something that people have been asking us on a weekly basis since you started this. I know you're very level headed about it. I know others that we speak to are very level headed about it. What are your thoughts on anybody that has tried to do some of these calls for a collective group, for people that want to pull their money together, they want to save on the gas fees, they want to be able to give you something, maybe pay a fee monthly or whenever it might be, and see these tokens trade? Do you think this is something that can ever be done well? Do you think it's something that should be approached? Do you think it's just waiting for the right person to come along with the right mindset to do it? What are your thoughts on doing that for others?
Or again, like, look, I'm not what I don't like about crypto space is like it relies on a lot of hype and like a lot of self-advertising. Don't fade me, I make millionaires and stuff, right?
Mm,
You know that it's all about this like hype balloon that people create around themselves. Now, in reality, if you look at these calls on the chart, and if people imagining me getting every dip and getting out at every top, and they said if we make a wallet, Oscar will get in every bottom and get out every top. That's not the reality. Okay, if it
right.
made 89x, I get out at the 40, thinking that's the top. I'm giving an example. Maybe I get out at 40 thinking it might pull back to 20, or I can buy the same back for a half price, then it will go further. But eventually it didn't and it go further, right? But this is a
Mm,
successful one. Still, right? You made 40x. It go 89, but it's okay. You make good money. Another thing is like, and you trade with other people's money, you might not take those decisions as comfortable. And another thing is like, if something goes wrong, like Alpha buy, right? One wrong decision and it's some other people's money in a collective wallet. I see that as a very big responsibility. But people can do it together. They can make a common wallet together or something, multi-sig, and trade with that
right.
maybe.
It's one of the things that I'm hearing in terms of what it is that you're saying is that you are already putting a lot of time and effort into your responsibility, and you believe your responsibility is to get the data in a sea of ruggy tokens and tokens that don't make it. You see your position and job as being the person that finds the best ones out of the bunch, and you utilize the tools at your disposal, the knowledge, the groups that you're in, the people that you're able to speak to behind the scenes that not everyone is going to have access to. And before anybody
Yes.
gets frustrated at that, frankly, it's the reality. The reality of life is that not everybody is going to get that kind of access. And if you are able to, if you can benefit from someone who is willing to share a little bit of information, then grab onto that benefit rather than being frustrated that you're not in sitting at the big table, because just not everybody's going to be able to get there. That's your responsibility, is to condense that information into manageable, bite-sized, reasonable chunks that people can make a decision on. What you are also giving people, I feel, is an opportunity for them to discuss among themselves what's the best strategy for them. If people want to trade collectively, they can do so. If they want to assume that responsibility, they can do so. But like you said, putting the pressure on your shoulders to then trade with other people's money might make your decision making slightly different to how you would normally do it.
That is what I worried about the most.
Right. And then
Because
things
like
can go wrong.
some guy put $100 in that wallet, and if he get a return of 400, it's a great money, right?
Right.
But and someone put like some other amount, and like for someone I lose that $100. It's the really money. Someone has like a $10,000 wallet, put 100. Someone has a $200 wallet, he put the same $100. This is like, these things come to your mind, it really affects your decision making. It could be a small loss for someone, it could be a big loss for someone. It's like people have different targets, people have like different goals, different dreams. So I
Right.
don't see that very good decision making process trading with that kind of wallet.
No, and I think what I'm also hearing from you is that the anticipation is that at some point it will go to zero. I think that's what people seem to forget in this kind of space, is
Yeah.
that you've just got to think about your investment potential of going to zero. And it's not
Mhm.
about, maybe saving it at 20% or 30% or whatever it might be, and then recovering the next time. No, the reality is your money could go to zero, and then a lot of people could be left with nothing.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's something that we're certainly being asked about. It isn't for a lack of thinking from our point of view to take the responsibility away from yourself, so off of your shoulders, and we take that burden. And we are looking at ways and having meaningful discussions between us about how it is that we might be able to do something like this. But it's certainly not something, I think, that, like you said, if you're not comfortable with it, you're not comfortable with it. In recent
We
memory,
can
what's been your
say
go
that
on?
what worries me, but we can talk about it and finding ways around it. Maybe, of course, we can talk about it. I'm just telling you what worries me about it.
Right. Yes. And that's fair. And I think it's good to have those worries. And I think actually the people listening should also know that those are the things that are going through your mind. It isn't just
Mhm.
about, taking people's money and running with it. It's about those fears, and making sure you can mitigate against that as much as possible. One of
Mhm.
the things I want to highlight is we have a silent listener in here. You mentioned him once. I mentioned him at the beginning, which is John. And it's
Yeah.
actually John who introduced us. And I respect John's opinion tremendously. I think he's a very calm voice in this space. Certainly
Yeah.
when
Same.
I get the opportunity to speak to him privately. And I know you feel the same way, right? Um,
Yeah. Sure.
so I just want to, very quickly say thank you to John, of course, for introducing us and actually giving us the opportunity to speak and interact with you and learn from you, and get a little bit of an insight into what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and then
Mhm.
passing that opportunity on to us. Because I don't think anybody is going to be disappointed with the fact that you've given this space over the last 45 days an opportunity to make thousands of dollars, frankly. Which is amazing. Now, one of the things I am going to discuss is we're going to eventually, quite soon, put this behind a paywall. It's a paywall that is
Mhm.
going to reward you for the effort that you're putting in. And I hope everybody listening to this has understood that it is a tremendous amount of hours that you're doing sitting behind a screen. It's a lot of sifting through, and you've spent a good few years curating the relationships that you've got in this space. So that isn't necessarily something that, of course, anybody is going to want to just give away for free constantly. With that in mind, for those that will jump into this cool channel, for those that will continue, do they or should they expect any change in pace on what you're doing? Should they expect anything different, or are you going to keep it exactly as you currently have it? And perhaps if it's a smaller group of people that you're talking to begin with, do they maybe get a bit more of your time? How might that look, do you think?
So the pace is not in my hand, to be honest with you. The pace of the call is all about the market, all about the narrative. If tomorrow Metis change, still the volume and I'm not very familiar with Metis chain. Actually, I tried Solana for the guys because everybody was complaining about gas fees, and it was like a disaster, to be honest.
Right.
So the pace is the pace is decided by the market, but there's always call. Some month we can be like 15, some month we can be 35. But I'm not also comfortable just, oh, you know what? This is a call channel, just throw some in to make people happy. They win, they lose, doesn't matter. That's not how I look at it. But as we are going into the bull and there will be more launches, every project will like get more access because it is the bull, right? So
Right.
definitely my expectation is the pace is getting faster. But that's my expectation. No one knows. Tomorrow we might face a big pullback and things will slow down for 2 weeks or so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's still some debate on whether that pullback happens. I don't think anybody expected it to be as high as it is now.
Yeah,
Potentially going to break its all-time high this evening.
yeah.
It isn't for a lack of trying either. What everybody should know is it's not for a lack of us pestering you in the back end to say, hey, could there be some more calls? Are there things that you want to throw in are there a few more that you want to throw in our direction? It isn't for a lack of us asking. And you're very
Mhm.
firm. And again, it's something that I respect is that you will just stand your ground and say, if there are no calls to give, I'm not giving any. I'm not just going to throw out some shit calls and hope for the best. I'm only going to give ones that I feel comfortable with. Then
Yeah.
always going to
If I'm
succeed,
not
but
gonna
only
put
them.
my money in, I'm not gonna share it.
Right, which is great. It's a great philosophy to have, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that sentiment. Some fun questions before I let you go, because I know it's reaching 2 a.m. for you. What's in recent memory, favorite token that you've had? Do you have one?
Oh, I mean, it's always the early times that, like,
Yeah.
the early times there was this like a cat token. Then I was like trading on Binance Smart Chain called Grumpy, which is I just suggested to me by my friend, and he was just like telling me, you know what, throw just some whatever you have in it, just. And I remember I was just having like $120 in my account, and I just throw that money. And it's just like my favorite story because it was just like shocked me with crypto. That was the first time it happened, and in the blink of an eye, I was like $5,500 in my bank account. I was like, oh my
Right.
god, and I just like take that money out, left another 3,000, and make dreams of being a millionaire or something like that. But of course, then it goes to zero 3 days later. Then I was like, okay, that's a good lesson.
That is a good lesson. Yeah, and the ones where that's happened to me has been good lessons. In terms of the biggest X that you've ever had on a token, everyone loves hearing figures. What's the biggest amount that you've ever rallied?
I cannot say that's them. Sometimes investment is bigger, X is small, but the gain is bigger. And sometimes it's like, but I seen 150 X's, 200 X's around that zone. I catch those.
Right.
But of course, it's not like I hold all my back along the way. I take profits along the way.
Right, of course, which is the best way to do it. I mean, 200x is not too bad, though, right? If you can get that, then fantastic.
Yeah.
A totally non-crypto related question.
Hmm.
Do you watch the UFC?
Oh yeah. Like I am also very picky about it. I watch certain jiu-jitsu fighters, certain UFC fighters that I like who fight smart. Other than that, I don't watch it all. Like I make my picks and like if they fight, I watch it. I was a big fan of Khabib.
Yes, great wrestler. I was going to ask you your opinion on Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis, who you thought was going to win there, because I know Saint-Denis I think he's a black belt, right? At Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a bit of an animal when it comes to
It's
rolling.
always the most fun striker against grappler, right?
Yes,
Then Poirier has like bricks in his hand, and then the other guy is like, if he can take the fight to the ground, he's gonna win. If it's a stand up, Poirier gonna win. We will see. Poirier has a good wrestling defense actually. So if he can keep it stand up, I think it's gonna be a hard day for the other guy.
interesting. Yes, I might tend to agree with that. That card, if anybody is interested in the UFC, frankly is ridiculous, considering it's not even UFC 300. It's 299 coming up this weekend.
Mhm.
I highly recommend watching it for anybody that likes some of the fighting. As some parting words for the community, for the people listening, is there anything when it comes to calls that I haven't covered that you'd like to, that you think I should have spoken on?
Like, I really suggest people nothing. I can just make one to the first question answer we did actually that we write down is like a very good guide to how to trade safe. I think if someone doesn't read it. And if you can train yourself, like we are in a race, crypto is like very fast, and you don't want to get into race with some old car. So if you train yourself on this trading bots, you will be ahead of many people. That's what I would suggest.
Right. Great. And we're certainly going to throw some links in to the channel on the bots that are available, perhaps some YouTube tutorials on how they work so that people can learn how these things work. We are going to be running a giveaway, of course, and one of the things that I mentioned is that we are going to at some point close off the Oscars Call channel for people just generally being able to see it, and it will be behind a paywall. One of the things that we're giving away today is going to be a month's free access to that channel. So the giveaway is going to be running very soon. Once that's running, click on it and you can earn yourself a free month into that channel. I think it's going to be an exciting journey. Like you said, Oscar, I think the bull run is going to be coming right around the corner. I think
Yes,
movement is going to pick up, and there is a tremendous amount of gains that can be made from a lot of these tokens if you do it correct. But it is about making sure you understand the risks, making sure you understand it can go to zero, and as you say, being disciplined. So
that's
I'm
a big important point.
right, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that journey with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these calls that come
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and
Thank
yeah,
you. I'm looking
seeing
forward to it too.
what can happen. But it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. Thank you, and again, thank you for
My
staying up
pleasure.
so late.
Thank you very
And
much, guys. No problem.
good luck at training tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck to you all.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.